I am pleased to have Russell Crowe back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you, Charlie.
Good to see you.
Cool, thank you.
Tell me about John Brennan in this movie.
Well, he's an English teacher, or an English professor, if you want to call him that, at a community college in Pittsburgh. He comes from a working class family. Dad was probably a steel worker of some sort before Pittsburgh changed its nature. You know?
Yes.
He has a very deep and unshakable belief in his family, particularly in his wife. And that brings about a situation where he steps outside of himself. And, you know, the great question that Paul Haggis asked me at the beginning of this, you know, what he put in front of me, which made it intriguing to do, was he said, here's a guy that loves his wife, but in order to save his wife, he has to turn into someone that his wife can probably no longer love. And I just sort of
That's intriguing for you right there.
I sat with that for a few days, and I thought, that's really cool.
Yeah. So what he has to do is his wife has been put in prison for murder.
Yeah, well, there's, you know, it's just a normal family, you know, they've got a little son, and one morning there's a knock on the door, and it's the Pittsburgh police, and his wife gets arrested for murder. And through 3 years of appeals and trials, it's decided that by the court that she is guilty and she's going to serve 20 years. But he doesn't believe that. He doesn't believe that the person that he married is capable of doing what they say, you know. And whatever circumstantial evidence is brought up, he has that unshakable belief in it, you know.
And in fact, there's a moment in exasperation, and she tells him, I did it.
Mm.
And
well,
he says, I don't believe you.
But that's part of the disintegration that she's going through, you know. So at that stage, she's already been in prison for 3 years. And she's actually trying to be courageous, I think, in that moment. She's saying to him, look, cut me loose, I'm done. Just look after our kid and go and enjoy your life. Kind of, that's what she's trying to do, you know. But he doesn't fall for it.
And he's therefore prepared to do anything because he believes in her and he believes in their love.
He believes in her, and he understands the difference between legal and illegal, but he also has a, you know, a very Pittsburgh sense of justice as well.
This was based on a French film?
Yeah, it's called Pour Elle with Vincent Landon and Diane Kruger.
Did you watch that before you?
Well, you'd think I would, wouldn't you?
Well, I wouldn't know. I'm not you. I wouldn't think anything about you. I'd make no assumptions about you.
Well, I put it on, and I watched it about 10 minutes. Right?
And
it starts really quickly.
Yeah.
And the movie has a real pace to it, right? Yeah. And I was really engaged, so I stopped it. I went, I don't want to fall in love with this movie because I've already fallen in love with the script. I don't care how they solve their problems because I have my series of problems. So, and I still haven't actually watched it again, you know, but I'll get around to it.
So how do you go through the process? Help us understand the film, the actor's process. So Paul has presented this great question, which you're intrigued by.
But that came off the back of having already read the script.
Yeah. So you saw the script and you liked it?
Probably the best read in terms of, you know, that act of reading the script since I read the script for Beautiful Mind sitting on a back porch in Austin, Texas in 2000.
What was it about the script?
Everything connects. You know, there's tiny little details, and you can't possibly know what those details are about when you see them as an audience member. And then later on you see that minute thing have a grand effect or a dangerous effect or a positive effect. You know, things that you think can't be thought through that much. Well, you don't know what an English professor can get up to.
So you got to make this guy believable, and the story has to be believable in order for me to like it. Otherwise, it's just some another action adventure, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, see, I never read it as a thriller.
You read it as?
A love story. You know, I just said to my agent, George Freeman, who I've been working with for nigh on 20 years, you know, I just said to him, it's a great love story, man. In his eyes, in her eyes, in the relationship with the child, you know, the physical connection so easily and natural, you know. It was, you know, it's an interesting journey to undertake, but, you know, for me, got to be on the page, you know. Now I've taken some risks in the past where it's not on the page, but I've had very, very strong instincts about something. Gladiator was one. The script, you know, forgive me, David Franzoni, the original writer, but it was terrible. You know, they had whole sequences where the difference between one chariot and the other chariot was explained on the basis of, you know, the difference between Ferraris and Maseratis and all that sort of stuff. They had sequences where the gladiators, which is actually true, but nobody today would believe it, would take endorsement money from olive oil companies. You know, there was it was just stuff which it's like, that's not going to swing. You know, but I had the thing in front of me. It's like, you know, it's 180 AD or 184 AD. And you're a Roman general, and Ridley Scott's the director, you know. And that was kind of, particularly at that stage, you know, of what I was doing. I'd just come off, I'd done Mystery Alaska, and then followed by The Insider. And I was on my way home to Australia, and they really wanted me to meet Ridley before I got on the plane. And I read the script, and I was like, man, it's ridiculous. But there's that thing of like, I just, having seen his work, and you know, a few decisions I've made in my career have been on the same basis that you know, well, they won't be making another one of these for a while, will they? You know what I mean? So if you don't take it now, you'll never get to wear the
so either you've got to like the script a lot, or B, you've got to really want to work with the director.
Either the narrative is complete on the page, or the potential of that narrative is so clear that you can take a risk that you'll grind it together and you'll find it, you know. And my conversation with Ridley, he was all about visual aspects. He showed me a painting by Jerome, I think, and then a few other things, and just talked, and he had such a robust quality to him, you know. And I talked to him about a few details, and he just said things like, that'd be great, do that, you know.
I trust you.
Yeah, you know, and all the way through the process of making that movie, we were finding the things that people remember from that film. And, you know, I mean, you're really lucky if you have one film like that in your lifetime, right?
In your lifetime?
Yeah, just, you know, I'm not...
But you've had more than one. I mean, you've had A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah, but that's a different film. That's different. There's been some successes, and there's been some great critical successes, but that thing touches people on a different level, you know. It's now 10 years or 11 years since we made it, and that film still plays at prime time on television, you know. It's still... What
do you think it is? Human spirit?
Yeah, that journey's pretty full on, and what I also encouraged Ridley about was just let me fully express him emotionally, you know, because occasionally, you know, we have people say, can't believe you won the Academy Award for that when it's just an action movie. And it's like, well, you should maybe look at it again and remind yourself what he goes through, you know. Like when he comes across the burnt body of his wife and son, you know. And what he goes through there, you know. And
I remember that scene.
I said to Ridley, you know, when we get around to doing this thing with the wife and son, that's going to be full snot, you know. And he said, what does that mean? And I said, well, he's going to be torn apart. He's going to be emotionally torn apart, you know. It's going to come from the deepest part of him, and it's going to be uncontrollable, his grief, you know.
And you got to be there to be ready for me.
Well,
being uncontrollable.
Yeah, well, I just wanted him to know that that's how big that moment is, you know. So we got there on the day, in this particular location. We were over the back of Malta somewhere. And he said, look, you know, start 200 meters down there. I'll have cameras on you. Walk towards the house, you know. Remember, you've ridden your horse till it's died. You've come all the way from basically the Italian-German border to get here to Spain, you know. Some on a horse and then some on foot, you know, come across there. So, you know, I hit this mark, stare at your wife, she's about 25 feet away, you know. It was a pair of feet nailed to a board. And he said, and just hit that mark, because I've got this nice lighting state there. And I said, oh no, man, I've got to go and see it. He goes, look, there's your mark. look up. You're going to give me all the snot you like.
I would like to be there at
You
that
know,
moment when
and
he
so I
said, no,
I've got to go and
you
see
got to
it."
hit your
He goes,
mark.
"I've only got a pair of feet, mate. I don't have your wife. I've just got a pair of feet." You know? I'm like, "Yeah, but I've got to go and touch her. I don't care. I'll kiss her toe or something, you know?" And he goes, "Oh, that's going to look ridiculous." I said, "No, it won't, man. You know, I've got to get to her, Ridley. Otherwise, I'll, you know, not only have I ultimately failed, I fail her again by not going to her, you know, even though she's dead."
But in the end, Ridley probably loved that.
Yeah.
Well, after he saw it, but he probably loved it even as an attitude on the part of an actor.